Hello, everybody. Welcome into VRIC Media, your most trusted voice in metals and mining. My name is Jesse Day, and we are bringing the VRIC to you each and every week with our series of expert online panels. I'm very excited for the one we have lined up for you today. We have Mario Innecco, host of the Innecco 64 YouTube channel, the home of alternative economics and contrarian views. And we also have Taylor Kenney, economic journalist and host of Tailor Made Economics at ITM Trading. It is wonderful to have both of you back on the program again.
Thank you so much for having us, Jesse. Good to be here.
Yes, Jesse, thank you again for having us.
Well, our first panel was very well received, so excited to have this one as well. I want to kick things off with the conflict in the Middle East, the on again, off again ceasefires. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of confusion. Trump claiming he completely destroyed Iran's nuclear capabilities. Iran saying, no, actually, they barely did any damage. A lot of other sources saying the same thing. It's a complete mess. But how do you think this war, assuming it continues to escalate, because since this supposed ceasefire was announced, we saw Iran and Israel attack each other. Now it seems things have calmed down, but I believe we're in a situation where it could heat up again at any moment. If that were to be the case, how do you think it could affect the global economy and precious metals markets? And Mario, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I thought previously to the ceasefire, the markets were very calm considering all that was happening. Yes, crude oil did trade up, but only to around 76. And gold was pretty steady. So were stocks. So I'm not sure. If the reason to buy gold and to be long gold and commodities is necessarily the war between Iran and Israel. I know they have a ceasefire now. I don't think it's over by any stretch of the imagination. But I think, Jesse, what the powers that be in the West and the US will do is they will use it as an excuse in case the economy is slowed down. And they'll say, well, it was because of the conflict in the Middle East. So I think that's going to be used as a distraction. You never know. I think I'm not sure Iran is going to do anything silly like closing the Strait of Hormuz, because I think despite everything we hear in the mainstream and from Israel and the US that they won, I'm not too sure they won. If anything, from what I hear, the Israelis approached Iran for a ceasefire. I think they were under pressure. So I don't think Iran is going to do anything really reckless. And they know that America is not going to try to invade Iran. And that's just very, very difficult. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said during the campaign, or just after he was nominated to the head of the health service, that 70% of Americans of fighting age are not fit to fight. So I don't think it's going to materialize. So I would focus more on the debt ceiling, the big beautiful bill, and the dollar as well, which as we speak here, made new lows here as per the dollar index.
Yeah, some great thoughts there. And it should also be noted the US claiming victory, the Supreme Leader Khamenei in Iran also claiming victory. He posted on X recently, congratulations to Iran on our victory over the US. And I'm sure Benjamin Netanyahu is going to be next. Congratulations, Israel has won this war. It's just a complete joke. Taylor, what are your thoughts on these situations developing in the Middle East and the potential impact they could have?
Yeah, I mean, do I think it's over? Not by a long stretch, right? This is just one chapter in a very long story, in my opinion. I would agree, though, that I was surprised that there wasn't more volatility in general. I think that that's something we kind of tend to see with these crisis and geopolitical conflicts. But it is interesting, right? I mean, historically, anytime we look at wars like this, we're going to see more inflation. We're going to see more printing. Wars are expensive. Fiat currencies go down. Gold goes up. I mean, I was asked recently, is there a bear case for gold? And the answer is kind of right, a world peace, which I don't think we're getting anytime soon. So do I think that this is just the start again of a much bigger story? Yes, absolutely. I think that, I think what's different too right now is that historically people pile into safe haven assets, gold being one of them, US Treasuries being another. And we're not seeing that now at all happening, right? And I think that that's something we're going to see people move away from, nations move away from even more rapidly. And this is just kind of the beginning of that. So we're just getting a little taste. I think there's a lot more to come, though.
Can
Yeah,
I
and then
add,
yes,
can
please
I
do.
add, Taylor said, world peace. I would add small government and, yeah, I would add small government to
And
that.
World peace and small
responsible,
government. Yeah,
yeah,
all
responsible
things that are.
spending. And it should also be noted that the Nasdaq hitting all-time highs recently as all of this is going on. I think this shows that, yeah, it hasn't been nearly as disruptive. I agree. Oil spiked, but has come back down sharply once again. I think everybody's assuming that it's going to be business as usual. That will remain to be seen. However, the US dollar has been showing weakness recently with the DXY being down around 10% year to date. Is the dollar still the prettiest mayor in the glue factory of fiat currencies? And is it starting to lose its relevance in the global monetary system? How are you currently viewing this weakness in the dollar, Mario?
Yes, I still think it's the prettiest mare, like you said, in the stable. But there will be no alternative to the dollar in the fiat space, even though the pound, the euro, and the Swiss franc have gone up. If you look at these other currencies, they've also lost over 90% of their value versus gold in the last 50, 60 years or so. For the dollar, yeah, the dollar index today is testing some really important technical levels. There's a upward channel since 2008, the low, all-time low there, that comes in around 97.50 today. And I saw before we started that we traded as low as 96.99, and now it's at 97.20 or thereabouts. So technically, it doesn't look good. And the other thing that I've told my viewers is that if the dollar is so weak, despite the fact that the ECB, the Swiss National Bank, and other central banks have been aggressively cutting rates, can you imagine when the Fed starts cutting again? I think it could hurt the dollar even more. Yeah, that's how I see the dollar right now.
And Taylor, your thoughts on the weakness being shown right now in the USD and what that could mean for the currency moving forward?
Yeah, definitely. Do I think that was a colorful way to put it, Jesse? Is it the cleanest shirt in the hamper of fiat currencies? Yes. I agree with Mario that there isn't another fiat currency that's, going to be more relevant or that's overtaking it. But I think in general, there's a lot to be concerned about. Mario raises a really good point too, talking about what's going to happen when the Fed lowers rates here, right? What are we going to see? I think, again, this is not to sound like a broken record, but this is kind of just the beginning, what we're seeing right now. Recently, I saw that, gold overtook the euro as a reserve currency underneath the dollar, or not currency, but reserve asset underneath the dollar. And what we're going to see, I think, again, is just this move away from fiat currencies in general, just a general weakening of all of these currencies across the board. So the dollar might still be number one right now, but number one as far as what? It doesn't mean much, right?
Yeah, well, that leads us into the idea of a monetary reset that's been coming up a lot recently, obviously involving gold. I've been hearing this from a variety of people on this show, on my other show as well. Even people that aren't really strong gold bugs, they just look at gold as an asset like any other. Even people like that are coming up and saying, I think that there will at some point be a monetary reset involving gold, so you have to be holding it. Of course, a lot of big names in the financial space, Ray Dalio being chief among them, has been talking about gold for some time now. I think you're both in the camp that gold will continue to play a stronger role when it comes to the international monetary system. In your view, where are we right now in that potential reset process? And what are the catalysts that could accelerate gold's importance as money? And Taylor, I'll go to you first on this one.
Yeah, I don't think that a reset is coming, right? I think we are in a reset right now. I just don't think it happens overnight the way a lot of people think of it, right? They think, oh, it's something that's just going to happen. The dollar is going to fail. The entire system's going to vanish as we know it. Tomorrow we're going to wake up and it's different. Not to say that that day might not come at some point, but there's going to be a lot of steps and a lot of signs before we get there, ones we're seeing right now. So it's no longer hypothetical, in my opinion. It is happening and it is accelerating. I think as far as what the catalyst is going to be or when that day is going to happen, that's the big question, right? No one can answer that with certainty, but the catalyst could be many different things, right? We look at US debt. I think any kind of currency crisis, obviously we're going to see more, for me at least, I'm watching US Treasury yields very closely, right? I think if we continue to see a move away from the dollar and US debt, how are we going to continue to keep the machine running? How are we going to continue to grease the wheels? That's a serious concern. And yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but I think we can all feel it that it's accelerating.
Yeah, and I think worldwide we just have some of the dumbest political leaders that we've had in a long time in charge of many, many different countries who don't either understand what's happening or who are just kicking the can down the road for as long as their term lasts and leaving it to the next guy. Mario, what are your thoughts on where we're at in terms of a potential monetary reset involving gold?
I agree with Taylor. It's an ongoing process, mainly because unlike in the 1930s, early 1930s, gold is not part of the monetary system. So FDR, he did a reset on January 30th, 1934, and revalued the price of gold versus the currency, the dollar, from $20.67 to 35. So that was a reset there. At the time, the Dow gold ratio was around 2. And then the next reset was in 1980, and that was a market reset, just like we're seeing now. And in 1980, gold traded up above 850. The Dow was at 850. So the Dow gold ratio was 1 to 1. I think the Fed's balance sheet was 120% backed by gold. So gold was way overvalued. And we could start again inflating the system like they did for the next 40 years. So yeah, that's how I see it. And right now, for example, the Dow gold ratio is around 13. It has gone down a lot this year, but it has been around 11. I think it was beginning of April. It's now rebounded, but I think it's consolidating. And I expect that ratio to go to 1 in the next few years, the Dow gold ratio. As per triggers, I think it's already happened, really. The major one, I think, was when they froze Russia's reserves back in 2022 when the Ukraine-Russia conflict started. And yeah, that it's de-dollarization. Yes, there could be an event that like accelerates it. And like Taylor said, it's difficult to tell. There's a lot of candidates. Maybe even like what's happening now to the dollar, breaking this key support here on the dollar index could be what sets it. Could be Trump nominating very dovish chair of the Federal Reserve. There's rumors that he wants to come out early, like soon, and say who he's going to nominate, even though Powell is there until May next year. So yeah, that could be a trigger or some geopolitical event. We've got the BRICS summit in Rio, July 6th and 7th. They could announce something vis-a-vis gold and their monetary architecture.
Yeah, absolutely. And Grant Williams has actually said that he believes that the U.S. seizing Russia's FX reserves is on par with Nixon removing gold from backing the U.S. dollar in 71. So I think that could certainly be an event that historians look back on as a potential beginning of a new system. Let's talk about central bank gold buying. That continues to drive the gold market. Central banks have been buying gold at a pace exceeding 1,000 tons annually for the past 3 years. Just to put some perspective, the decade prior, the average was 400 to 500 tons. Of course, this is only what's being voluntarily reported. The World Gold Council recently released their survey called Central Bank Gold Reserves Survey 2025. Here's a quote from what they found. Similar to findings from previous surveys, central banks continue to hold favorable expectations on gold. Respondents overwhelmingly, 95%, believe that global central bank gold reserves will increase over the next 12 months. This is despite gold being at all-time highs. What do you make of this aggressive outlook from central banks regarding the gold market? Taylor, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say this is despite all-time highs. I I always say watch what they're doing, not what they're saying, right? If central banks are buying gold like it's cheap, it's because it is, right? Price is one thing, value is another. So I look at those in power, the elites, those who know what's coming. And this isn't just a shift. This isn't just a hedge, in my opinion, at least. This is positioning for what's coming next. I also get the World Gold report, World Gold Council report sent to me. And I think I saw in that report, was it 10%? You can fact check me on that, but 10% of central banks said that they would be planning to hold more dollar reserves compared to 95% holding significantly more gold, right? I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. Going back to that earlier question you had about the dollar. If the dollar is supposed to be, the global reserve currency, and that's what our entire global monetary system is based around, well, goodbye, good luck. That's not going to cut it. So why are they buying gold? Because gold is going to have a central role in the new monetary system. Trust is broken in fiat currencies. It has to be rebuilt on something with trust, and gold is that something, in my opinion.
Mario, your thoughts on the findings of the World Gold Council's survey?
Not surprising. I think central banks are going to continue to accumulate gold. And we also saw recently that Italy and Germany, a lot of pressure groups there, want them to repatriate like a quarter of $1 trillion of gold they hold with the New York Fed. So the faith and confidence in the dollar and the financial system in the U.S. is waning. I also saw a report from OMFIF. It's an independent think tank for central banking, and they did a survey as well, and they found that gold, the euro, and the yuan now are really picking up relative to the dollar. The dollar used to be the top pick in the previous survey last year. Now it's number 7. And one of the respondents to the survey, or actually the OMFIF, said that a lot of central banks plan to double down on acquiring gold. So I think it's going to get even that 1,000 tons that we've seen on average the last 3.5 years or so. That could be increasing quite a bit, I think. So yeah, I agree with Taylor. The fiat currency reserve system, because that's what it is, holding US debt as reserve, is on its way out, and gold will be the beneficiary.
So I think we all believe we're still in the early stages of a gold bull market, but that begs the question, is there a time to sell your gold? Because, a lot of people like to talk about, oh, gold is not an investment, which I believe is true. It is wealth. You hold it to remove your savings from counterparty risk. You hold it as an insurance policy against government malfeasance. You hold it to protect purchasing power in the face of persistent inflation. And so there's no need to ever sell it. A lot of talk about holding precious metals, passing them down to the next generation. But is there a scenario where you could see selling your gold, at least taking some off the table or liquidating your entire position, whether that's a Weimar Germany style hyperinflation where you can now buy a mansion for an ounce of gold, or some other such scenario, or perhaps just gold gets to a price where you look at it and say, this looks incredibly overbought. All the news stations are talking about gold. Everybody's trying to get their hands on gold, and perhaps it's time to liquidate gold and enter a different asset. What are your thoughts there, Mario?
Yeah, I guess it depends what do you liquidate your gold for. I
Yeah.
don't think I will ever liquidate a big amount of gold for fiat currency anymore because even if gold goes parabolic, why would you want to? That means that the fiat currency system is dying. Why would you want to exchange it for dying currencies? But as you said, in the Weimar Republic, there's a story of a young man who got left a $20 gold piece, which is just under an ounce, and he was able to start a hotel business with that. I saw recently that Incrementum did a little analysis of the Porsche gold ratio, and you needed 235 ounces to buy a Porsche 911 in 2000. Now it's down to like 40. So yeah, maybe when it gets to 10, people might want to swap 10 ounces of gold for a Porsche, even though when that happens, the world will be a lot more unstable. There will be a lot more crime. So you might want to be careful with that. But like you said, there could be things like you want to buy a mansion or you want to buy land. That's never off the table. But in terms of savings, I think, like you said in the questions that you sent us before this interview, that it's also generational wealth. You try to keep it for your children and grandchildren. I think that's also important.
Yeah, perhaps use some of that to purchase a mercenary army in the case of crime being on the rise to protect the rest of your gold. Liquidate this, hire some mercenaries. Taylor, your thoughts on, is there a scenario where you could see liquidating your gold, perhaps in exchange for real estate or something else if prices really got high, or another scenario you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the question for sure. I also am not going to say never no, but do I see myself selling all my gold, liquidating no, because again, it's all about purpose for me, right? I don't view it like a trade. For me, it's my insurance policy. And kind of like what Mario was saying, if the day comes where I needed that insurance policy and I'm talking like, yeah, it goes parabolic and, I need, then the world is going to be a very different place. And to be honest, like, I hope we never get to that point because it will be a scarier world that we'll live in. But in the meantime, my lifespan in the grand scheme of the world is short. So when I think about legacy and generational wealth as well, and I think about gold's trajectory over time, right? It's thousands of years. We're not talking, a couple of decades here. So when I look at the big picture, gold will always have value. And I think that value will only increase in the future. So for me, no, I don't really see a scenario where, if there was an opportunity though, of course, like I actually appreciate that hotel story where you could create more wealth in a way that probably what I would do is turn around and then get more gold. So that's my honest answer.
There's one other thread I wanted to pull on there that I hadn't prepared as a question, but I speak to Rafi Farber on this show and my show as well quite a bit, and his added, because you do hear this a lot that, oh, if gold goes parabolic, it gets to this certain crazy high price, it means the world is in chaos and bad things are happening. So I speak to a lot of people that say they hope that doesn't happen. Rafi has the complete opposite view, and that we need to tear this whole thing needs to collapse, and whatever needs to happen because that's the only way we're going to get out of this fiat currency prison to the other side. There's no way the people in power who control this system are going to go, well, it looks like it's not working. Perhaps we should all switch to gold and forget about everything that we're doing. These are, for the most part, evil people. I think, I mean, I'm getting into a little bit of a philosophical domain there, but I think most of the world leaders who are in charge of this system are not good people at the very least. And so they're in it for themselves and for consolidating their own power. And so can you see a case to be made for Rafi's point that, maybe we do need to have it all collapse and it's going to be painful, but then on the other side, we can kind of rebuild. Taylor, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if it's the three of us out and we're sharing a beer and we're talking about this, sure, I'm going to say burn it down, right? Burn it down. Of course, I agree with that standpoint. Yeah. The reason though, why I'm always cautious with that publicly when I'm talking about it is because the same way maybe in 2008, right? People were saying, oh, all these people who are taking on all this debt and can't afford it and low rates and they don't even know what they're getting into. I can't wait for things to go sideways. Ultimately, what actually happens? There's a lot of people who are hurt. It's not just those in power. It's not just those at the top. There are everyday people. And although we're all out here screaming every day at our screens saying, wake up and see what's going on, there are a lot of people who just weren't educated, haven't been exposed, don't understand what's happening, and they get kind of caught up in that destruction. So I'm always cautious. That's like, I don't want everyday people to be hurt. And I think that's where that kind of, I hope we don't get there comes from. But, personally, yeah, us sitting here, of course, yeah, light it on fire. But
Well, yeah, that's an interesting point because I also find myself like wanting the broad market to crash for some reason. I think it's because everyone's been talking about it. It's
yeah,
way too overvalued. It annoys me that so then I have to kind of think of why do I want the broad market to crash? Do I want a bunch of people to get all their, savings wiped out, people who are heavily invested, or is it because the assets I hold in terms of commodities are not doing as well historically as the broad market has. And so maybe I'm jealous of the broad market. And so I want to see it crash. So we always have to question our motivations. Mario,
sure.
what are your thoughts on that whole scenario? Do you think pain and suffering on a large scale is required for this fiat system to crumble and for us to come out on the other end? And perhaps that's something that will ultimately lead to a brighter future.
Unfortunately, there will be pain and suffering, and I agree with Rafi. Uh, I guess we're always hopeful that it doesn't, but I don't really expect the powers that be, who have been charged for centuries, if not thousands of years, the concept. I don't think they're gonna like give up before giving it, fighting really hard, kicking and fighting to keep it going because it's a really good gig to be able to create currency out of thin air and control everyone. So it's the last thing they're going to do is say, "Oh, we're going to stop this now and bring back sound money, and we're going to write off all debts, and everything's going to be fine. We're going to have world peace, and we're going to be really nice." So unfortunately, that's not going to happen. It's one of the reasons I've been posting stuff on YouTube for the last 10 years is to try to warn people about it. And it's not going to be the end of the world. It will be feel like the end of the world for the vast majority of people, unfortunately, because they won't know what happened.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it might take that type of shock to wake some people up. But in the meantime, obviously, we're all doing what we can, hopefully, to reach some new people. Let's talk about silver for a moment here, because it has now broken and remained steadily above $35 an ounce for over 20 days as we sit here right now. And it's remained pretty consistently above $36 as well for most of that time. A lot of technical analysts I've spoken to see this as a sign that $35 could be the new floor and that we are going to see much higher prices up ahead. How are you viewing the recent price action in silver, Taylor?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's exciting. I know that all silver fans have had a hard, long road a little bit here. But do I think that $35 is like breakout to chase? No, I just think that this is a sign again of the larger monetary shift, right? And silver's its own entity. And I think as far as I view it, again, not like a trade. I am a believer in silver. I own silver. But for me, I just think it's part of a larger shift. And I think it's just the beginning. I don't think it's going to shoot up overnight, in my opinion. But I think that it's just starting to respond the way that I think many people have hoped it would as gold continues to rise and its dual monetary function continues to elevate. I think that we're going to continue to see it rise. I think Mario probably would be better equipped to speak on it more on the technical terms.
What's your thoughts, Mario, on price action of silver?
Yeah, it's positive. I mean, that 35 level was important. The next level is like 37.50 in the spot. I think we touched 37.30 last week or so. So it looks positive, in my opinion, and that 35 level could be a floor now. But like what Taylor said, I hold silver as insurance, and it's a bit more like gold is more as a wealth preservation instrument. Silver is more like a bartering instrument. It could also preserve wealth. So I think the way I view silver, and I started buying silver like a little later than I started buying gold, is that I love the old silver coins. I also have bullion coins, and that's why I hold it because it's a really nice metal, and just like gold. And but the key with silver is to have patience because it's been very frustrating because everyone expects silver just to go to the moon. But it's possible that it could do. But I would tell people keep your expectations down, keep stacking silver. And if something does happen, it's just a cherry on top of but not, of the ice cream or whatever. It's just a little extra. So that's how I see it. But in the fiat currency era since 1971, whenever you have a major blow off or bull market, let's say in precious metals, silver comes late to the party, but then at the end it leads. So I think there's still a lot of potential for silver. You just need to be patient.
Yeah, I was looking at the long-term chart of silver. I actually posted this on X the other day. It actually looks, if you go back, to 71 until now, you had those two big spikes to 1 to 50, one close to 50. But then more recently, it's been rising quite steadily over the last several years. And so it actually looks very good to me. A lot of people complain, I think, because they bought close to all-time highs, perhaps. But I think the chart looks good at the moment. Silver, however, is very underowned by the retail public in the West. Do you think if gold continues to rise, we could see a lot of retail investors perhaps attracted to the next shiny object because an ounce of gold being, $4,000, $5,000 is obviously going to be out of the reach of most people. And then perhaps silver's role as poor man's gold could ultimately be fulfilled in driving investment demand from the monetary side. Mario, what are your thoughts there?
I mean, it should already be doing that. It should be getting people in the West to look at silver, but uh, unfortunately, there's a competitor right now, which is cryptocurrencies and bitcoins and all the altcoins, and we're even seeing the bankers and the powers that be getting involved in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. So yeah, but it doesn't mean to say that people won't wake up to silver, but it's still early days. It just tells me that we're nowhere near a top in silver. But I think eventually one day people will realize the value of silver, even in the West.
Yeah, I think one of the issues is lack of access to information about silver because obviously it's never spoken about in the mainstream media. You have to find shows like this, which is definitely alternative media to hear about silver. Taylor, what are your thoughts on what it might take for retail participation in the West to pick up when it comes to physical
Yeah,
silver?
I think that there's still a long ways to go. I will say it is interesting, though, as there's more chat around gold in the mainstream media. I do think that it kind of wakes some people up because I've had quite a few people reach out to me, friends, family members, and say, oh, I know you're into this, or I started watching your channel, or I saw something on the news. They'll send me articles, right? Mainstream media articles, and they'll say, I want to get some gold. And I started looking at silver because I couldn't afford gold, to your point. And then I think as the wheels start turning, while they're very different metals with different functions, I think that as more people are exposed to gold, more people might realize about silver. So I think it's again in early stages, but do I think there's potential for that growth? Absolutely. I think, yeah, I think what did Mario just say that the top is high there. So I think we have a long way to go.
Yeah, and I think silver, for me, I started off with silver. I did not have enough money to be able to buy gold when I started stacking. And stacking silver actually encouraged me to save up and buy gold because it kind of became the next goal in that precious metal stacking journey. So I think that can also occur for a lot of people as well. Well,
A
this has been a
gateway metal.
fantastic. Yeah, the gateway metal. I like that. Silver, the gateway metal. That should be the marketing campaign. Well, thank you both so much for coming on the show. Mario, tell us about the Moneco 64 YouTube channel.
Yes, it's the home of alternative economics and contrarian views. I try to inform the public about the monetary system and how fragile it has been because people are not taught that in school or university. And the focus is basically on free markets, small government, and sound money. And I post a video, I post content every day, and you can find me on YouTube at Innecco64.
Great. The link will be in the description below. Taylor, tell us about tailor-made economics. I know you also have this show Gold Rush Hour now where you're driving around in a car talking about precious metals, which is very cool. Fill us in on all that.
Yeah, so tailor-made economics, I essentially try and take topics like what we're talking about today and break them down in a really easy to understand way so that we can all learn and grow together. And it is true, yes, I'm trying to bust out of the studio as much as possible and shake some things up in our space. So doing some drive-in talks. Recently, I just did a expose on cashless stadiums here in Arizona, did a boots on the ground piece. So trying to do more out in the field and just really, again, raise that awareness and find different ways to inform the public, because I think that's what we're all here to do, right? Is try and help people. So you can find me at ITM Trading. That's where my show is. And I'm sure you'll add that there too.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be in the description. I'll also put a link to both of your profiles on X so people can follow you there. Thank you once again. Part 2 of this panel has delivered beyond my expectations. So thank you both for coming on the show again.
Thank you so much for having us. Always a pleasure. Great to see you guys.
Thank you, Jesse, and nice to be together with you, Taylor. I enjoyed it.